My name is Yulia Brown, I'm 33, and I work in real estate. Right now, I live in a popular area tower condo with my husband, whom I married a year ago. But today, when I got home from work, I found myself facing a terrible situation in that tower condo. In front of me stood my husband and a woman clinging to his arm. That woman declared with a twisted smile, "Yulia, long time no see. What is this all of a sudden? I heard a rumor that you got married and looked into it, and you've married a rich guy who lives in such a fancy tower condo, right?" I was shocked. It's so unfair, we were born from the same mother. This woman was my half-sister, born to my mother and her first husband before she remarried my father. So, what are you trying to say? I'll get straight to the point. I'm having an affair with your husband. Oh really? What, are you so shocked that you can't even speak? Hilarious. No, I'm just extremely grossed out. Well, in a way, that's also surprising. Seriously, how old are you? Realizing that matching her tone wouldn't get us anywhere, I stopped my sarcastic comments and calmly continued. Whatever, but what is this? I haven't seen you since that day, and now you suddenly declare an affair? Huh? You think it's just an affair? What? I'm taking your rich tower condo husband, so sign the divorce papers already. With that, she threw a piece of paper onto the table in front of me. It was a divorce form, already filled out by my husband. I glanced at my husband, who was giving a sheepish, awkward smile. Of course, he's useless. For various reasons, our relationship hadn't been great lately. I didn't have solid proof, but I had suspected he was having an affair. I had also roughly identified who he might be secretly meeting. I'll never forget the shock I felt when I realized it. I never imagined it would be my half-sister. I found the situation so absurd that I couldn't help but burst into laughter, which I couldn't stop. Hey! What are you laughing at? Annoyed by my laughter, she yelled at me. Ah, sorry about that. So, what was it again? You want me to give up my husband? Sure, fine, whatever. What? Go ahead, he's all yours. I firmly stated this and casually signed the divorce papers in front of me. My husband, unable to hide his confusion, and the woman, who couldn't stop grinning. Okay, I've signed the divorce papers. Is this good enough for you? Pretending to be tough. Serves you right. Get out of here, you're seriously an eyesore. All right, I'll just take my things and go. I informed the woman, who was already acting like she owned the place, and went to pack my belongings in my room. I really liked this condo. Oh well, whatever. I thought as I closed my suitcase and headed down the hallway to the front door. Well then, I don't think we'll ever see each other again, but take care. Thanks. You too, good luck. What? With this tower condo, I won't need to work hard, you know that, right? Oh, is that so? Realizing it was a waste of time to continue the conversation, I responded nonchalantly and walked out the door. I went straight back to my childhood home, where I had lived alone before getting married. This is how I lost my husband and returned to my pre-marriage life. My upbringing might be a bit complicated. I say might be because I never really felt that way while living my life. I was born to a father who ran a real estate business and a mother who was a part-time housewife. We lived in an old family home that my father cherished, which outsiders would just see as a rundown house. Even so, we renovated that house, which had been treasured by our ancestors for generations, and lived there as a family. As an only child, I was truly loved and cherished by my parents. People around us might have thought I was overprotected, but my parents' deep love for me was accompanied by strict discipline, for which I'm now grateful. That's how dearly and carefully I was raised. But my life suddenly changed 6 years ago in the summer when my parents died in a car accident. At that time, I was working at my father's real estate company when his secretary, Miller, ran towards me, looking pale. Miss! Hey, Miller, I've told you not to call me that at the office, right? This is not the time for that. The CEO, your father and his wife. What? It felt like it took minutes to understand what she was saying. The CEO and his wife were in a car accident during their trip and are unconscious. Dragged along by Miller, I rushed to a large hospital in the place that held memories for my parents. In a dim room in the basement, I faced the most painful moment of my life with my parents. Dad. Mom, oh. How did people see me, crying and clinging to them in the middle of the two beds? However, I didn't have time to indulge in sorrow. My father was the CEO of a fairly large real estate company, and the funeral had to be conducted according to company protocol. As the only daughter, I naturally had to serve as the chief mourner, and for a while, I was constantly on the move, with no time to grieve. After successfully completing the funeral, I organized the company affairs and inheritance with a lawyer and, with the mission of eventually taking over, was appointed executive vice president of my father's company. The CEO role was taken over by my father's younger brother, who had been the vice president, and he was to mentor me. The plan was for Yulia to take over this company all along. Think of it as happening sooner than expected. I'll make sure to train Yulia well in place of my brother, so work hard to show him how capable you can be, okay? Thank you, Uncle. I'll do my best. It was my 6th year at the company. From that point on, I threw myself into work with all my might. I was a pampered only child, raised with great care. No matter how tough it got, I had to persevere. Looking back, those days were incredibly hard. One day, during that hectic period, an unexpected person appeared before me. It was about 6 months after my parents' death. That day, I had stayed late at work and was dragging my tired body home to the old family house. As I approached the gate, I saw a figure I didn't recognize. As I got closer, I saw it was a woman who looked a bit older than me. She noticed me and, for some reason, addressed me irritably. "You're late, aren't you?" "What?" I said, "You're late." She yelled at me, showing her displeasure. Who are you?" "Huh? We're meeting for the first time, right?" I had no memory of the face glaring at me. As I racked my brain trying to remember, she said something shocking. "Is this tired, plain woman really my sister?" "Ugh, that's annoying." "What?" "Whatever." "Hey, sis, give me some money. I'm really broke right now. I can't even pay my rent." "You just got off work, right? You look like you have a decent job, so you can manage at least a month's rent, right? Come on, for our first sisterly reunion, pay up." "What? Sister?" Seeing my obvious shock, the woman smiled cruelly. "Oh, you didn't know? We're sisters. Half-sisters, actually." I instinctively rejected the words coming out of her mouth. "Sisters? Half-sisters?" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and no words came out. Mocking me, she continued. "Well, you wouldn't remember. Our parents divorced before you were born, when I was 5. Mom left me behind and remarried, then had you. I was raised by our father alone, while you were loved by both parents. So, don't you think you owe me something?" So, in place of the mother who abandoned her, she's here to beg me for money. She must have tracked me down for this. "I see, you received a letter from the lawyer?" "Huh? I didn't expect you to come all the way here. I'm sorry for the confusion. Nice to meet you, I'm Yulia Brown. You're Diana Jones, right?" "How do you know my name?" "When handling the post-mortem affairs of our mother, I found out she had been divorced. Seeing the birth certificate, I learned about you. That's why I sent you a letter from the lawyer regarding the inheritance. It should have mentioned everything in there. I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do, so while you've come a long way, there's nothing I can offer you beyond what's in the letter." She looked at me, stunned, clearly not expecting that I knew about her. However, anyone with common sense should understand. I am handling the aftermath of my mother's death. Given that I sent a letter about it, there's no way she wouldn't know. "Why are you acting so calm? Be more surprised to see me suddenly appear." "Even if you say that." I thought this was a possibility. My overly cool response clearly didn't sit well with her, as she started yelling in front of the house, "I don't like this. You're not cute at all. What is it with you? I really hate women like you." Even though I've lived here a long time and have good relations with my neighbors, causing a disturbance would be problematic. Trying to resolve things peacefully, I decided to take a humble approach. It's our first time meeting, and our relationship is complicated. But as I mentioned in the letter regarding the inheritance, my mother was a part-time housewife, so she didn't leave much. However, as stated in the lawyer's documents, we have equally divided her assets. Can you accept this arrangement? Listening with a slight sneer, she glanced at the house and scoffed. Well, living in this rundown house, I guess your life wasn't great if your mother had to work part-time. And you seem to be working late, too. Well, if you were living off your father's wealth, I was gonna ask for more, but it seems you're not. I'll leave the rest to your lawyer. With that, she gave me one last look and left. Later, I heard from the lawyer that her inheritance procedures were completed. Since then, she hasn't appeared in front of me, and I threw myself into my work. During this time, I met someone new. I met a man 5 years older than me, who worked at a client company, at a company event where we bonded over shared interests. At that time, we only exchanged business cards, but later, I had the chance to visit his company's headquarters, where we met again by coincidence. Oh, Mr. Lopez. Oh, Miss Brown. No, Vice President Brown. I apologize for my rudeness the other day. I didn't realize such a young person was the vice president. As soon as our eyes met, he rushed over and apologized, probably realizing my title after I left. He kept apologizing. Please, you don't have to apologize. No. I've been so rude to the vice president of a company we've had a long relationship with. Really, don't worry about it. I was also nervous that day. I had a lot of fun talking with you, Mr. Lopez. I was genuinely happy to have a normal conversation with him that day. Since becoming vice president, I hadn't had many chances to go out with my peers, and our conversation at the event was a refreshing change. Honestly, I wanted to keep talking. So did I. I felt like I could talk with you all night, Miss Brown, he said. Then he asked, "If you don't mind, would you like to grab a drink after work today?" This invitation rapidly brought us closer. After a few post-work drinks, we went golfing, a hobby we both enjoyed. And from that day, we started dating. Our relationship was going well. We'd have dinner after work if we had time, spend the night together if we both had the next day off, and go on dates the following day. Although he often stayed over at my place, which, despite renovations, was still an old house that got cold in the winter and hot in the summer. I didn't want him to get sick because of this, so I decided to prepare a room in a tower condo. What? Yulia, did you buy this place? Well, actually, this condo belongs to our company. Huh? The condo is built on land my father owned. The company owns the land now, but since it was originally my father's land, they arranged the room for me. Oh. Yulia, your father. He's the former CEO of our company. He passed away in a car accident. I see, that's why you're a Brown. Yeah. He looked satisfied and happily explored the new apartment. Eventually, saying it's closer to work, he moved in and we started living together. However, with his many hobbies besides golf, he seemed to want some time alone, so he occasionally returned to his own place. This arrangement continued for about 2 years, and then we got married. Despite my busy work schedule, I had planned to take more time later to organize a wedding and reception, but it seemed he had different thoughts. We've been living together for a while now. Don't you think it's time to make it official? Huh? Living together like this and seeing each other every day without making it official feels disrespectful to your parents in heaven. You were thinking about that? Of course. You're a precious daughter raised with care by your parents. Yulia, let's be happy together. Saying this, he presented a shining ring in front of me. Oh. Yulia, will you marry me? Michael. And that's how we got married. As an only child with no parents, it was already decided that I would take over my father's company. So, he joined my family register as a son-in-law and became a Brown. Even after marriage, our life didn't change much since we were already living together. He still wanted his alone time and would go back to his place occasionally, just like before. However, he seemed to change a bit. He started going out for drinks more often. And his clothes and belongings became a bit flashier. Nice suit. Did you buy it? Oh, yeah. You know, I've suddenly got a lot more business connections. The Brown name is pretty big. People at work recognize me and start conversations. Really? It's true that being a Brown son-in-law created a buzz around him. But I felt like there was something more going on. Did you buy that suit with the family card? Oh, yeah, sorry. My new connections require a different kind of suit, and I don't have those. With my salary, it was tough to buy one. I told you to consult me before using the card, right? Yeah. You've been doing that a lot lately. I gave you the family card for groceries and living expenses, right? But you've been buying personal items with it. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't buy things. But since it's a card in my name, shouldn't you discuss if it's necessary or how much it costs? Sorry. My husband muttered an apology and retreated to his room. I had given him the family card considering our respective salaries. As an executive vice president, I earned significantly more than he did as a department manager. Given this, we agreed that I would cover rent, food, and living expenses, while he would handle other payments. I gave him the family card to use for food and living expenses. Initially, this arrangement worked well, but gradually his personal purchases started appearing on the bill, and now it's common to see large charges every month. I didn't want to distrust him, but I couldn't ignore the changes in his behavior. So, I began secretly monitoring him around that time. This led to the confrontation described earlier. I never expected my sister-in-law to be in that apartment. Although I was shocked, my ex-husband's behavior made sense. I quickly decided to leave him and returned to my family home. Living in the old house again after several years felt comforting, as if it embraced me. As I reminisced about the tower condo, I thought, this is truly my place. My ex-husband notified me via text that our divorce was finalized and he had married my half-sister. I simply replied, understood, and returned to my usual routine. Apart from moving from the tower condo to the old house, my life remained unchanged. I cooked 3 meals a day, went to work, and spent my evenings leisurely. The only difference was that my ex-husband was no longer there. Even that difference wasn't significant, as we had already grown distant. I informed my uncle and close friends about the divorce but didn't bother telling others. No one seemed to notice since I hadn't changed much. I pondered this while walking leisurely from the nearest station to my house. As I approached, I saw a figure in front of my home. Instantly, I recalled a scene from the past. It was like the day I first met my half-sister. As I approached, I saw her leaning against the gate with a scowl. She noticed me and charged towards me with a furious expression. What? You! You set me up, didn't you? You fraud! Con artist! What are you gonna do about this? She tried to grab me. But my ex-husband appeared beside her, grabbing her hand and stopping her. Stop it! You'll cause serious trouble if you hurt her. But she tricked us. She must have told the condo owner to kick us out. This bitch is just jealous because I took her man. Her stream of insults was relentless. It had been a while since I'd heard such childish name-calling. With a sigh, I faced my sister-in-law. I didn't deceive anyone. I only did what was right. What? You did this on purpose because you hate me and Michael. You're a total jerk for cozying up to the real estate owner. No, I didn't cozy up to anyone. What do you mean no? Exactly what I said. No, because it's not true. What do you mean, not like that? I didn't ask the real estate agent to kick you out. I just ended the lease, that's all. What? Lease? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're misunderstanding, but that tower condo is under my name. Isn't it my right to do what I want with my own property? What? It's your property? Yes, it's officially under my name. Since I no longer plan to live there, I decided to put it up for sale. How could a real estate agent kick out the owner of a condominium? That's impossible. Realizing her mistake, my sister-in-law's face turned red, and she bit her lip. I decided to press my advantage. Besides, now that you two are married, shouldn't you find a place to live on your own? Isn't that what normal couples do? Moving into the condo where I used to live, no matter how fancy, is a blow to your pride, isn't it? Her face grew even redder, and she glared at me, and my smile widened. Enough! So, that condo was in your name, and you put it up for sale because you weren't going to live there anymore. Yes, I just said that. So, the condo isn't Michael's? Of course not. Do you really think an ordinary office worker could afford such a condo? He'd spent his entire salary on the mortgage. Ordinary office worker? But he's the son of the Brown real estate family, right? What? No, he's a son-in-law. What? Son-in-law? This seemed to be the first time my sister had heard this, and she stared at my ex-husband, her face aghast. Naturally, he averted his eyes, filled with guilt. Son-in-law? What do you mean? Exactly what it sounds like. He married into the Brown family as a son-in-law. But why? Why would Michael become a son-in-law? Because I'm the daughter of Brown Real Estate. What? What, you didn't know? The nameplate on this house has said Brown since the first time you came here. What? Did you not see the nameplate? Maybe I didn't. I was dumbfounded. She must have known when she first came looking for money. The name Brown must have been remembered then. But since she had no interest in me and was just here to extort money, she conveniently forgot. Because Michael told me. He said he's the son of the Brown family, so he can live in the condo and buy whatever he wants. Really, Michael? You said that? Well, technically, I did become the son of Brown. Such pathetic reasoning. Just hearing it gave me a headache. Well, in a sense, that's true. Right? But your intention was to be seen as Brown's son, not Brown's son-in-law, right? That's a lie, isn't it? As long as it doesn't get found out, it's no problem. What? Michael, are you serious? Lying to her, your wife? Why? You only approached me because of the Brown name, right? So I played along. You enjoyed the perks of the Brown name, and now you're complaining? A man who used the Brown name and a woman who was fooled by it. From my perspective, they're both equally pathetic. Stop this disgraceful argument. Regardless, I'm the daughter and heir of Brown Real Estate. The old house you called rundown is a cultural property. The land is prime real estate. You are too blinded by appearances. My sister's face turned bright red, her fists clenched in anger. I continued to press her further. By the way, you two got married, right? So why didn't you know Michael's last name? Because the nameplate on the condo said Brown. Didn't you see it when you signed the marriage certificate? I filled it out, and Michael took it to the city hall alone. Oh, so Michael secretly signed and submitted it afterward. Seeing my ex-husband looking down, ashamed, I felt a mix of emotions. Did you think you could keep it hidden forever? I thought that once we got married, it wouldn't matter. Did you really want to marry her that badly? No, that's not it. Then why? Being with her made me feel like a higher-level person. What? That was just because of the Brown name and the magic card, wasn't it? What are you misunderstanding? My blunt words made my ex-husband lower his head even further. But there was something else I needed to know. Diana. What? How did you know I got married? You never contacted me after that day. We lived far apart, and there were no mutual acquaintances. How did you find out? I just happened to see you. Near the tower condo, I saw you and Michael holding hands. I see, she had spotted us. The tower condo was near a busy area in the city, so it's possible to run into someone by chance. I felt relieved knowing I wasn't being stalked. And after seeing that, what did you do? I saw you with a tall, handsome guy and got really pissed off. I followed you to find out where you lived and saw you enter that tower condo. When I saw the rings on your fingers, I knew you were married. I thought it was unfair that you were so lucky, so I decided to take him from you. All of this because of that. I was horrified by the obsession of the woman in front of me. What you're doing is disgusting. Say whatever you want. I don't like you. You took our mother and then tried to be happy all by yourself. I decided to steal your man. I stuck to Michael and tracked his actions. And then, he brought other women to his other place. Hey! What? It's fine now that you're divorced. That's... Anyway, when I saw him bringing women into his place, I thought, oh, maybe this guy is worth it. So, I pretended to accidentally bump into him and got close. Pretending to be nice to a woman he injured and bringing her home. I knew he was experienced. We ended up sleeping together that very night. Hey! So, he had been cheating all along. Given the situation, I realized he probably rushed into marriage because of the Brown name. He must have been using the Brown name to his advantage in various places. Feeling bitter about neglecting him due to my busy schedule, I still couldn't overlook the fact that cheating was a violation of our rules. I glared at my ex-husband with a blank expression. Yeah, it pisses you off, right, Yulia? But the worst one is you. You left your husband alone and worked all the time. Do you know how much Michael complained about you? Well, he paid me back for all his complaints in many ways. Oh, you mean with all those luxury brand items? So, you knew. While my sister-in-law looked bored, my ex-husband looked flustered. Just so you know, all those things were bought with my money. What? The magic card he used in front of you, that was my family card. What? Michael is just a fake Brown. Of course, he doesn't have any money. He used my family card to buy you presents. My ex-husband, looking ashamed, spoke up. Did you know all along? Of course. Even if you bought expensive clothes, there's no way it would cost that much for one person. And the store contacted me, saying, a significant amount is being charged to your family card, is that okay? My ex-husband froze, his body language screaming why? The luxury brands you were shopping at, I've been a regular customer for years. A customer? Yes, you never went to those stores with me, so you didn't know. But I'm a VIP. VIP? Yes. So, when someone unknown started using my family card, the store kindly contacted me. I asked them to inform me of who was coming and what they were buying. What? When you use my name, you're being watched. Every hotel and restaurant where you use the Brown name reported back to me. Hearing this, my ex-husband turned pale and froze. Next to him, my sister trembled with anger and turned her fury towards me. What's this? You're saying you knew everything? It's not that I want to say it. It's a fact. So you did trick me. What? You tricked me, you sly bitch. I felt beyond exasperated. Was this person really my half-sister? Aren't you the one who tricked me? What? I was just protecting myself. You, on the other hand, deliberately deceived me to steal my husband. In fact, you proudly declared to me that day, I'm taking your fancy condo husband. Didn't you? Shut up. In the end, I'm grateful to you. It's like you wrapped it up with a bow. So, thank you, Diana. My sister-in-law's pride was clearly wounded. She trembled with rage, her face turning red. My ex-husband pathetically muttered, "Why?" under his breath. "Oh, one more thing." "What now?" "This guy is blacklisted, so good luck with that." "What?" "Oh, you didn't know?" I wondered why he was using my family card. Of course, part of it was to avoid paying himself, but the main reason is that he can't get his own card. He's blacklisted. What? Surprising, right? I was shocked too when I found out after we got married. But hey, at least you know now, right? What is this? Well, he might look good, but he's that kind of person. Enjoy your married life. As I smiled, my ex-husband gasped. Suddenly, my sister grabbed my arm and said something shocking. "Hey, you wouldn't abandon your sister, would you?" "What?" "I'm your one and only sister. I was deceived by him, and you were cheated on and divorced by him. Let's work together. You don't mind if I stay in the condo, right?" Her aggressive words and the way she clung to my arm gave me goosebumps. I forcefully shook off her hand and gently rubbed the spot she had touched. "You deceived me too. And I've never considered you my sister, not now, not ever. I'm the only child of the Brown family. Even if the world turned upside down, we wouldn't be family. I could even sue you for damages. If I consult a lawyer, they'll take care of it right away. That includes you too, Michael. You know that you'd lose if I filed a claim, right?" The mention of damages made both of them react sharply. They must have realized the gravity of their betrayal. My words made them fall silent. "I want to settle this peacefully. If you understand that, then don't ever appear in front of me again. Leave the condo immediately. If you don't, I'll call the police for trespassing." They never expected me to mention the police. Clearly scared, they hurriedly left. I was sure they finally understood. I opened the old gate and entered my house as usual. Several months passed without them appearing again. My agent informed me that the condo was vacated the next day, and it seemed they had fled in a hurry. Finally, peace returned to my life. I used the money from selling the condo to renovate my long-neglected garden. I even created a golf practice area in one corner of the large yard. "Practicing golf right in the middle of the city is fantastic," I said aloud, making my uncle smile wryly. "Yeah, it is, but I didn't expect you to build something like this in the yard. You're truly your father's daughter." "Hey, what do you mean?" "You're impulsive and do things without consulting anyone." He laughed heartily and took a sip from his water bottle. "But don't you think it would be a waste? I have this huge lawn, and I wasn't using it for anything. So, I thought it would be a good idea to build something that wouldn't ruin the view. I spent a lot of money to ensure the design matched the old house. I guess so. I never would have imagined this row house would have a driving range. Right? Well, the internet will reveal everything." He laughed again. I loved my uncle's laughter. It reminded me of my father. Although they didn't look alike, their presence gave me an incredible sense of comfort and happiness. "Uncle, I'm sorry." I was completely fooled. That. Everyone goes through it. Plus, that woman is related by blood." "Huh? Do you know why your mother divorced her first husband? He failed in business and almost sold her off." "What?" "Their daughter, influenced by her father and grandparents, constantly berated your mother. Your mother, having endured this harsh treatment since the beginning of her marriage, eventually had no choice but to leave to protect herself." "I see." "My brother was the one who helped your mother when she left with nothing but the clothes on her back. He supported her through the divorce and even paid her ex-husband and his family money as part of the settlement." "What?" "Of course, it was all done through a lawyer, without using the Brown name. Blinded by the money, her ex-husband's family quickly agreed to the divorce. It was a painful and difficult first marriage for her. So, please, don't hold it against your mother." My uncle looked at me gently. Of course, I harbored no such feelings. Finding out about my mother's divorce and remarriage while sorting things out after my parents' deaths was shocking. But no matter what her past was, to me, she was my only mother, and I had no intention of blaming her. I knew that everything she did for me was out of genuine love. I don't think that way at all. I'm actually glad I learned about their passionate story. Yulia. Now that I'm divorced too, I wonder if I'll meet someone like Dad next. That sounds promising. Well, that depends on you. My uncle laughed and started hitting balls again. Being deceived hurt, and I felt ashamed. I can't deny that I had my faults too. I need to reflect on those points seriously. But in the end, it worked out for the best. Maybe I wasn't ready for marriage. I lacked the necessary resolve. When I'm ready, I'll surely meet someone new. Until then, I'll dedicate myself fully to the role I've inherited from my father, carrying the responsibility of others' lives. My journey is far from over. Oh no! Come visit me right now! William exclaimed in a panicked voice. I could almost see William's face on the other end of the phone. I heard that my husband William got into a car accident on his way home from work and was taken to the hospital. But the fact that he's calling like this suggests he's clear-headed, and I don't feel any immediate danger. Sarah, you gonna answer? Yeah. What's with that nonchalant response? Your husband's in trouble. Even though he says it's a crisis, he sure sounds lively and mad. Honestly, I'm more flabbergasted than worried. After all, just last month, I was the one in the hospital. During that time, William didn't come to visit me even once. William. I wonder if you know the anxiety of being alone in a hospital bed? Now you're gonna experience it. This might be a good time for you to reflect on your selfish nature. I'm Sarah Smith. I turned 27 this year. I married William 2 years ago, when we worked at the same place. We currently live in an apartment as a couple. I'm thinking of buying a house someday and raising kids, you know? Yeah. Holding a beer, William talks about his dreams, and all I can do is nod with an unsure look on my face. I had doubts about getting a mortgage with William's income. And if we were going to raise kids, I'd probably need to start working to help with the finances. On top of that, William can be quite childish at times. I suspect he'll leave all the child-rearing to me. Considering this, I couldn't feel very positive about either idea. We go shopping once a week, heading to the supermarket in William's car. We bulk buy meat and veggies that can be frozen, so on the way back, my hands are always full. You think we're spending too much? It's because we're bulk buying, so it's gonna be this much. After glancing at the bill, William checks the amount and starts walking out. Wait up! I was frantic. I thought he'd help carry at least half of the stuff. The cashier, too, looked surprised as she watched William leave. Oh, William! I walk out, carrying packages in both my arms. William doesn't match my pace. He moves ahead on his own, leaving the store and walking through the parking lot. I also stepped outside. With the packages, I can't see my feet clearly. Stumbling, I follow behind William. Just as our car came into view, I suddenly felt a sharp pain. I had tripped over the curb. My vision tilted. And my bag spilled everywhere. I stumbled back a few steps and found myself sitting on the ground. Ouch! I groaned. Only then did William turn around. There wasn't a trace of sympathy on his face. Just anger. What the hell are you doing? Making such a mess. Hurry up and pick them up. I can't. My foot hurts. I can't move. What? His voice filled with disbelief. Mustering all the strength I could, I said, Call an ambulance. This pain isn't normal. It feels like my toes are shattered. Don't be so dramatic. William just smirked and didn't do anything. With no other choice, I used my smartphone to call the ambulance myself. When the ambulance arrived, William's demeanor changed completely and he began to show concern.
Sarah, are you okay?
Yeah. I wasn't pleased to hear his condescending tone now. A burly paramedic put me on a stretcher to transport me. Is your husband coming with you? No. I'll go home to get her insurance card and wallet. Even as he said this, William was picking up the scattered meat and vegetables around. The paramedic looked slightly exasperated, but they loaded me into the ambulance. Inside, the moving ambulance jostled quite a bit. I was fully conscious, so the paramedic asked me how I got injured. I gritted my teeth against the pain as I answered their questions. All the while, I just wanted the pain to stop and hoped to get to the hospital and start treatment as soon as possible. Upon arrival at the hospital, I was immediately taken to the X-ray room. The diagnosis turned out to be fractures in both legs. I just tripped. I exclaimed in shock. I had panicked and called an ambulance because of the pain, but I truly hadn't thought it was this serious. Look here. Your bones are completely shattered.
No way!
I was at a loss for words looking at my own X-ray. If you've been doing heavy lifting regularly or just the wear and tear of daily activities, bones can get fatigued. That's what can lead to fractures with just a little incident. The doctor's tone was sympathetic. In the end, I was admitted to the hospital and waited with a nurse for William. However, William never showed up. Excuse me for a moment. I asked the nurse before calling William on his smartphone. William answered in his usual tone. Sarah, huh? What happened?
My leg, it's broken. So, I'm gonna be hospitalized.
Can you ask William to handle the paperwork?
What?
That's a hassle.
A hassle? I'm seriously injured here.
I felt sad. Even with such a severe injury, William didn't seem to care about me. He hadn't even looked for my insurance card. He said he forgot it while putting groceries in the fridge.
All right. I'll just go and get it done, okay?
William ended the call clearly in a bad mood. Would he really come in that state? I felt uneasy, but after some delay, William did show up. He had a forced smile on his face.
Sorry about all this. So, the hospitalization procedures are... You can do it right here.
A nurse explained to him, and William took care of my hospital admission. But that was it. William never visited me again until the day I was discharged. I never thought he'd be so indifferent. I was disheartened throughout my hospital stay. I was in a shared room with 2 other women. Both were elderly and far kinder than William.
Here you go, Sarah.
Thank you so much. They shared a piece of pear with me. The crisp texture and the rich juice overwhelmed me. The sweet flavor filled my mouth, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face.
What's wrong?
Nothing, it's just... I wiped away the tears with the back of my hand. I tried to hide my emotions and continued eating the pear. Why can others be so kind when William is so cold? In the end, William never visited me, not even once. Other patients had visitors almost every day, so I felt out of place. All the hospital gowns and such were for rent. Just like the beds, they had that hospital smell, and they weren't comfortable.
You'll be able to leave the day after tomorrow. Really?
I was beaming with joy. I was growing tired of William, but the thought of going home was exhilarating. When I called William to tell him about my discharge, I got a sigh of annoyance.
Just call a cab and get yourself home. I'm swamped with work.
I'll do that. I had given up expecting much from William. So I wasn't shocked, just overwhelmed with the question of why I ever married such a man. On the day of my discharge, I am following William's suggestion, I took a taxi home. The state of the house was shocking.
What's all this?
Clothes were thrown all over the room. Dishes and instant noodle cups littered the table. William had neglected house chores while I was away.
Am I supposed to clean this up?
I was taken aback. But I couldn't stand there forever. I got home around 2:30 p.m. William usually gets home around the same time, so I needed to tidy up and prepare dinner by then. I sighed and checked the fridge. Empty. The grocery store was a bit far, so I'd grab something from the local convenience store and run the washing machine in the meantime. My mind was a mess. Still, my experience as a housewife came to the rescue. As it began to get dark outside and William returned, the house had regained its normalcy. Seeing it, William merely remarked,
"Oh, it's clean."
That was it. No words of appreciation. I realized that to William, I was just expected to take care of the house, and any lapse would earn his criticism.
"This is a convenience store meal, huh? There weren't any fresh veggies or anything, so it couldn't be helped."
Even so, William looked displeased. And so, I returned to my usual role as a full-time housewife. My doctor had warned me against any strenuous activities, but William, as always, wouldn't help with things like carrying the trash. I wondered if I'd end up with another fracture, but continued doing the chores anyway. The next big incident happened a month later.
"It's urgent. Come visit me right now."
"What happened?" William's frantic voice echoed as soon as I answered. It seems William had a car accident on his way home from work. He was transported to a hospital from the scene. Given that he called me himself, he's probably conscious and alert. It didn't sound too urgent, but he was clearly panicking. I just sighed in disbelief. I thought to myself, isn't the hospital they're being transferred to the same one I was admitted to?
"Well, okay, but you're gonna regret it. Shut up. Hurry up, you loser."
The call ended. Reluctantly, I began preparing to head to the hospital. Even though William seemed so indifferent when I was hospitalized, look at him now that he's the one in trouble. How selfish can one be? An idea suddenly crossed my mind. William needs some punishment. While I was going through the admission process, William called.
"Hey! What are you doing? Get over here fast."
"I'm at the hospital. I'm currently going through the admission process."
"So, you're gonna come here after?"
"Nah, I'm going home."
"What?"
William responded in a dumbfounded tone. While looking over the hospital paperwork, I said into the phone,
"I came to the hospital as you asked. I'll take care of your admission too. But I'm not going to your room." "Are you kidding me?" "Hey, you're joking, right?"
"Nope," I bluntly replied.
"There are rental pajamas available, and everything else you might need has been left with the nurse."
"No need to worry."
"Sarah, it's a serious situation for your husband. Don't you care at all?"
William tried desperately to gain my sympathy. I couldn't help but smile. When it was my turn, it was a significant event for a wife. After all, it was William who ignored that.
"I do think it's tough. Right? Then get over here now." "But I think it's a good opportunity. You can have the same experience I had when I was in the hospital. Isn't it wonderful for a couple to go through the same thing?" "Cut it out."
William was furious, but Sarah hung up without a care. Soon after, William called again, but Sarah ignored it and finished her paperwork. On her way out, she noticed that William's doctor was the same one who had treated her during her hospitalization. The doctor knew about the way I was treated. Sure enough, that night, Sarah received a call from William complaining.
"What did I do to that doctor? I can't understand why he's so cold to me."
Is that so? Having the same doctor, it really shows the mysterious bond between couples. That's what Sarah thought, but on the other end of the phone, William was desperately talking about the misfortune that had befallen him.
"I can't stand this hospital. The nurses and the doctor treat me like a villain."
"That sounds tough," Sarah replied. From what she heard, initially, the doctor and the nurses seemed to have a sharp attitude towards William. Gradually, the other patients in the same room also began to ignore William.
"I don't belong in this hospital. All I can do is close the curtains and sleep all day. Meanwhile, the people in the room are talking behind my back."
Backbiting is awful, Sarah sympathized. Sarah remembered seeing William talking bad about her to a colleague after a few drinks. When William caught her gaze, he quickly hung up looking guilty, but never apologized. I wonder if he understands a bit of how I felt back then. William was hoping to be discharged as soon as possible. So much so, that when the day of his discharge was finally set, he eagerly called her.
Just 3 more days. I can be discharged in 3 days. Oh, is that so? You should be happier. Your husband is coming home.
Or more like a mountain of chores is coming home. That's what I thought, but I didn't say it out loud.
We borrowed the hospital bills from relatives. Well, when I get back to work, I gotta work hard to pay them back.
William ended the call just like that. He didn't seem concerned about my living expenses at all. I thought about dipping into my savings from my single days, but it might be better to just get back to work. I should save my savings for a rainy day. After that thought, I tilted my head.
What rainy day?
Then it hit me. I wouldn't struggle without William.
What have I been doing?
My decision after that was swift. Not just about work. I also started looking for a new place and planned to leave William. Luckily, I secured a job after the second interview. I found an apartment to move into. Then I guess I got a call from the divorce attorney. I headed to the law firm. On the very day William was to be discharged, I was packing up our current apartment. All the furniture was moved to my new apartment. By the time William came home, the apartment should have been empty. I left a divorce attorney's business card in the door.
Goodbye, William.
I whispered and waved to the empty room. Starting life in my new place, after the initial feeling of relief, I began to think of William.
I wonder if William is eating properly.
I left in anger, but now that I've calmed down, I might have been a bit heartless. How must William have felt, coming home to no one welcoming him? I shared this feeling with my mom back home. On the phone, my mother let out a deep sigh.
I can't believe he did that to you. Do you think it was really bad?
I frowned at my mother's sigh. Of course it was, she said with emphasis.
If your father had treated me like that, what would you think, Sarah? I'd tell Dad to stop.
Exactly. That's why it was so terrible, my mother explained. After hanging up, I took a moment to reflect. Even without William, I'd be fine. But William? He'd definitely be at a loss. While I was in the hospital, our house was a complete mess. But what's the point of sticking so close to William? Even though he's never been one to match my pace. If William had just carried half of the load, I wouldn't have gotten hurt. It was those little things that built up, pushing me to act.
William's such a typical lowlife.
I laughed to myself. I know everything William did while I was in the hospital. I even thought of forgiving him. But the moment William called, I was filled with disgust. Picking up, I heard William's angry voice.
Sarah, where are you? Get back home now.
I hung up without a word. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't stand William's angry voice. It was unbearable. And then I realized. It's over between William and me. As expected, William called with a fury like no other.
Sarah, what do you think you're doing? I'm not gonna let you go. I have no intention of getting back together with you,
I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I realized once I distanced myself from William. He had been a burden to me. When I slipped in the parking lot, William didn't help me. I even had to call the ambulance myself. What's the reason to be with a man like that?
You probably think of me as some maid or something, William. If that's the case, why don't you hire me and pay? What are you talking about? You're my wife, aren't you?
William's voice became soft and cajoling. I was deceived by that voice once and ended up falling for him. He may seem gentle, but that's just on the surface. In reality, he's selfish and cold-hearted. I won't be fooled anymore.
Just because I'm your wife, you think you can get away with anything? Do you have any idea how I felt when I was hospitalized? Of course I do. You didn't even visit me. I was so embarrassed. It's more than just an embarrassment issue.
I replied, exasperated. That day, the tears I shed while eating a pear were tears of frustration. I can never forget the tears of that day.
You didn't care when I got hurt, did you, William? You were too busy with work to even visit me. If I don't work, you'd be left out in the cold, you know? I'm doing just fine.
I thought William's words sounded rather desperate. In reality, I had been living on my own income before we got married, and I'm managing just fine even after distancing from William. William was trying his best to make me feel indebted to him. He often reminded me how I lived off his earnings. I sighed.
If you want to take care of a woman that much, why don't you live with the woman you were close with when I was hospitalized? What the hell are you talking about?
William was visibly shaken. But I knew. For the past 6 months, William had been having an affair with a younger female coworker. He had claimed to be working late and on weekends, but his paychecks told a different story. Suspicious, I hired a detective and uncovered the truth.
You should have had her do the housework while I was hospitalized. She can't do any household chores.
It seemed William had given up on lying. He exclaimed in a flustered tone.
Yeah, that's right. But I can't marry her. She spends too much money, and she can't even do household chores properly. So, a woman's worth is based on whether she can do household chores? Of course it is.
William said with disdain.
You may not be a beauty, but you do the household chores properly. Well, you don't have much going for you as a husband either. What did you say?
I declared. I am looking coldly at the infuriated William.
I'm recording this conversation. Huh? I thought you'd get angry and show your true colors right away. That's why I picked up the phone. To leave evidence.
Yes, she needed evidence of William's choice of words for the divorce. She managed to get him to admit his affair too.
Now I just have to submit this to court. Wait. I misspoke. Come on, Sarah, let's redo this. Don't tell me what to do.
There was a momentum in my voice. Uncontainable anger made me say that.
You never once matched your pace with mine when we walked. That's what caused that injury. That was just you being clumsy and falling on your own.
William never really cared about me. Whenever I pointed out his mistakes, he would just lash out.
Goodbye, William.
I ended the call unilaterally. I didn't pick up his subsequent calls. I had the evidence I needed, so I didn't need to put up with any more unpleasantness. Afraid of the legal battle, William accepted the divorce from his end. The divorce papers arrived in the mail with William's signature, and I quickly submitted them to the courthouse. It seemed things didn't work out with his affair partner either, as William never remarried. As for me, I'm done with marriage. Just as I thought that, I received an invitation to a class reunion.
What should I do?
After some brief hesitation, I decided to attend the reunion. When was the last time I dressed up for myself? I excitedly went to the beauty salon and got my hair done. From necklace to nails, I dressed up to the nines and headed to the reunion. I instantly reconnected with my friends, and we had a blast just like old times.
By the way, are you married?
Nah, just got out of a relationship recently.
Oh.
My friend nodded and whispered in my ear.
Looks like Thomas is still single. Really?
I felt a slight flutter in my heart. Thomas was my first love and my first boyfriend. We ended up in a long-distance relationship when I went off to college, and it eventually just fizzled out. With those fleeting memories in my heart, I faced Thomas.
It's been a while, Sarah. Yeah. It's good to see you're doing well.
I was able to smile genuinely. When was the last time I smiled like that from the bottom of my heart, not just being polite? Even after the reunion, my connection with Thomas continued. After exchanging texts, we started to meet in person. It kind of feels like a date, doesn't it? I said, half-jokingly. Thomas looked at me with a more serious expression than usual.
It is a date. Huh? You didn't realize?
Thomas seemed taken aback. I was too shy to look straight into Thomas's eyes.
Oh, so it was a date.
From that day on, I started to think that maybe it wouldn't be so bad to be open to love again. With a rustling sound, I threw away the birthday present Bob had given to our daughter, Catherine, into the trash can.
What are you doing? Say sorry now.
With a fierce look, my mother-in-law, looking like something out of a horror movie, glared at me.
Did you see the content of the card?
As she looked at the card, she began to tremble. Admittedly, discarding a gift from a loving father into the trash without handing it over to Catherine was wrong. However, after seeing the content of the card, there was no way I could happily give it to Catherine. Catherine is only 4 years old. She's in the middle of her preschool years, and she's at her most adorable. Everyone, including Bob, both our parents, and all our relatives, are totally smitten by her. She has received so many gifts, and I'm truly grateful for them. For some reason, Bob bought a separate gift and kept it a secret, not even telling me what it was. I was excited to see what was inside, not just for Catherine but for me as well. But now, the nature of the gift didn't matter anymore. I am Mary Johnson. I met Bob at a friend's wedding reception. When everyone was slightly tipsy, we played a bingo game. Both of us called bingo at the same time, and that's how we met. There was only one sling bag as a prize for the bingo, which he really liked. I gave it to him, and we agreed to meet another day so he could buy me a different one. That's how our relationship started and quickly led to marriage. It seemed very fast, but Bob was 30 and I was 32. Our ideal was to have 3 kids, so we thought the sooner, the better. Both my parents passed away early, so I was the only one from my side during our family's first meeting. As soon as I started my greeting, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, you came alone? Don't tell me you're one of those with an unknown background?" That was way out of line. She doesn't even know about my family background. There are things one should and shouldn't say. My mother passed away when I was in high school. I wanted to get along with Bob's mother just like I would with my own mother, but she immediately put me off. Bob told her, a bit angrily, Mary's parents just passed away early. But her sarcastic comments didn't stop. Aren't you older than Bob? Can you even give birth to a healthy baby? It was clear she had serious reservations about me marrying her son. Bob and his father tried to reason with her, but she wasn't the type to back down.
Joe, Bob. She might be a nice woman, but I don't think she's right for Bob. He could find someone younger and prettier, someone just perfect for him. Not some late bloomer with an unclear background.
The more she spoke, the worse it got. I pretended to check my phone and made up an excuse that work was calling, so I left. Later that night, Bob called. He apologized for his mother's behavior. Both Bob and his father promised that this wouldn't happen again. Deep down, I thought I could never be happy if she didn't accept me. But if Bob and his father acted as a buffer, maybe things would work out. I accepted Bob's apology. Finally, we got married. It was a small but beautiful ceremony. All of Bob's relatives were very welcoming, and I felt grateful for the experience. Even my mother-in-law was very kind and thoughtful that day. I thought, this must be the real her. We can get along. After our wedding, things felt more optimistic, and we went on our honeymoon to Hawaii. When we returned, we immediately visited his parents with souvenirs.
Thank you for your support during our wedding. Here are some souvenirs from our honeymoon. They're not much, but please enjoy.
I gently placed a box of cookies and a bottle of wine on the table. Famous Hawaiian cookies and wine which I thought his father would like.
If it's not much, then maybe you should take it back. Usually, when you give souvenirs to parents, you'd give something more thoughtful, you know?
I was taken aback by my mother-in-law's cold words. My father-in-law seemed equally shocked, his eyes wide. Snapping back, he chided, "Hey you.
When Sarah went to Hawaii, she brought me a designer bag and cosmetics. Of course, for you too, right? And she even gave Bob some nice clothes. Remember?
Sarah is Bob's childhood friend, a lovely woman 5 years younger than him. Even though she's not a relative, she attended our family gatherings and wedding, which made me think they must have been close. Bob, with a grin, chimed in, "Yeah, Sarah did go all out. She gave me clothes and a wallet. I'm still using that wallet." Seeing Bob enthusiastically join his mother's narrative made me feel alone, as if no one was on my side.
Sarah is so thoughtful. I've been using her gifts for years, and you too, right, Bob? Every time I use them, I think about how wonderful she is.
Indeed, Bob's wallet did seem well worn. I had thought of getting him a new one for his birthday this year.
Enough about Sarah. Can you tell us about your honeymoon? I'm more interested in that, my father-in-law interjected, noticing my somber expression.
I gave him a thankful glance. I gave my father-in-law a knowing glance, conveying my gratitude. After that, there were occasional snide remarks, but aside from that, we were able to spend our time harmoniously. I think it was all thanks to my father-in-law. From then on, my mother-in-law would call at least once a week, asking about Bob, if there was a grandchild on the way, and talking about Sarah. It was mentally draining for me. Especially the questions about having a child. Bob and I had been trying to have kids, and we even visited a local gynecologist to improve our chances. It turned out that due to Bob's health, it might be challenging to conceive. We were discussing potential fertility treatments. Fertility treatments are physically and financially draining, and I worried about managing it with my full-time job. My mother-in-law's pressure, combined with having no close family for support, felt overwhelming. In the midst of all this, Sarah paid a visit. I hadn't thought highly of her, given how my mother-in-law and Bob always sang her praises. But after talking to her, she seemed genuinely nice.
Don't worry about it. Bob isn't the type to be bothered even if he doesn't have kids. And I'll make sure things are smooth on my end with you, his mom.
Although I had reservations about her due to my mother-in-law and Bob always praising her, after talking face to face, I realized she genuinely was a kind person. Our conversation lightened my mood and made me more optimistic. Perhaps that shift in mindset worked wonders, as I soon found out I was pregnant and later gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Bob and both our parents exclaimed, "A long-awaited girl." Bob's parents, who only had one son, had probably wished for a granddaughter. Everyone doted on her, and she quickly became the apple of everyone's eye. Our daughter, Catherine, grew rapidly, moved from daycare to kindergarten, and seemed to play with a lot of friends every day. I returned to work, and my weekends became busier. Whenever I wasn't around, Bob would take Catherine to his parents' place. Whenever I could come home early, the house would be empty. On the occasions I finished early, I'd usually meet up with them at Bob's parents' house. Feeling reluctant but doing so anyway, I headed over to his parents' house one day.
"Mary, it's good to see you. It must have been a long trip. Thanks for coming, especially if you're tired,"
greeted my father-in-law, welcoming me at the doorstep.
Bob, Catherine, and Sarah went shopping together. They might be playing in a nearby park. I hope you can relax even if it's not comfortable here.
I had hurried home, only to find out that not only Bob and Catherine were out.
And what's the deal with Sarah going along too?
Well, it can't be helped. Having nothing else to do, I busied myself by tidying up parts of the house and pulling weeds from the garden, careful not to interfere with my mother-in-law's space. Around 6 in the evening, Bob, followed by my mother-in-law and Sarah, returned.
"Hey, Mary. Didn't know you were here. We went shopping with Catherine today. Got lots of toys and clothes, all thanks to Mom and Sarah."
Bob, hands full of shopping bags, was followed by a delighted Catherine. Then, trailing behind, my mother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance.
"Oh, Mary, you just decided to come without calling? We're fine without you, you know. If anything, you're in the way."
She began with her usual snide comments.
"Catherine even said she prefers being with Grandma and Sarah over you. She said that even though you didn't buy her any toys today, Sarah did, and she's happy. She likes Sarah more than you."
Such words, even if not truly spoken by Catherine, hurt deeply. With a full-time job, the time I spend with Catherine is limited, and from a disciplinary perspective, I can't always buy her everything she wants. But to be told she prefers someone else over me, especially Sarah, was heart-wrenching.
Moreover, I heard you didn't want to have a child. Sarah told me. Even though Bob was considering treatments, you didn't want to because it would mean more work for you. You returned to work, so you probably don't want any more kids. Sarah was lamenting how a cute child could have been born.
I was shocked beyond belief. I remember confiding in Sarah about our struggles to conceive due to issues with Bob and whether or not we should consider fertility treatments. Sarah had hinted that she might tell my mother-in-law, so what was this all about? Blinded by Sarah's amiable demeanor, I spilled all our marital concerns to her. My vision blurred with disbelief. Too stunned to speak, I was jolted back to reality by Catherine's words, "Look, Mom. I got this pretty thing. Clothes with ribbons and flowers. And guess what? Aunt Sarah got me the toy I wanted for my birthday." I realized Catherine's 4th birthday was coming up next week. I had planned to buy her the present she had been wanting on a day when I could leave work early. She had been asking for a doll, and I had decided to buy the doll along with some clothes for it. Had she already gotten it? I searched for Sarah to thank her for the gifts and to verify what I had heard from my mother-in-law. But she seemed to have left without a word. That night, I tried my best to hold it together, and we went back home, just Bob, Catherine, and me. On Catherine's birthday. I had hoped to celebrate just the 3 of us, but we were invited by Bob's parents. I wasn't keen on going after the traumatic events from last week, but seeing the excitement on Bob's and Catherine's faces, I reluctantly agreed.
Bob, Mary, and Catherine. So glad you could make it. Happy birthday, Catherine. Come on in, we've got a feast and cake ready. And of course, presents too.
Catherine, with a gleeful yay, darted towards the living room. She was excited about her presents. Before even touching the birthday meal, she was all over the mountain of gifts. Looking at the beautifully wrapped presents made even a parent like me excited. Among them was a notably large gift, which was the one Bob had chosen. Reading the card attached to it made my blood boil. And I threw Bob's gift for Catherine into the trash bin.
What on earth are you doing? Apologize now.
My mother-in-law, with a face contorted in rage, stared me down.
Did you read what's inside the card?
As she read the card, my mother-in-law began to tremble. Sure, throwing away Catherine's present from her father was a big no-no. But after reading that card, there was no way I could have given it to her with a smile on my face. Catherine, now 4 and in the prime of her preschool days, was the darling of the entire family. Everyone adored her, Bob's and my parents, and all our relatives. She had received plenty of gifts, and I was grateful for that. For some reason, Bob had gotten her a separate gift and wouldn't even hint at what it was. I was as eager as Catherine to find out what it was. But the card changed all that. The relatives present were equally puzzled.
Bob, what's the meaning of this? The card says, "From Dad and Mom Sarah." What's that about?
Yes, the message card said, "From Dad and Mom Sarah." I presumed they bought it during their shopping trip last week. It was probably the electronic piano Catherine had wanted. It's pricey, so we had planned to gift it to her when she started elementary school. But it seemed they had already gone ahead and bought it.
I don't know anything about that card. I haven't touched that gift since we bought it last week.
Stumbling over his words, Bob began to make excuses.
It's not about that. You've been bringing Catherine here all the time. And you both keep mentioning Sarah. Were you having an affair?
My rage got the best of me, and I yelled, momentarily forgetting we were in front of family. The realization that he could have been cheating all this time suddenly put things into perspective. Despite my reluctance, Bob often took Catherine to his parents' house without me. He had stopped talking about our treatments once he began visiting his family more. He used to be more considerate about my relationship with his family, but once he started making these solo trips, he would only say I didn't have to join if I didn't want to. And there was more. As my anger grew, I was interrupted by a familiar voice.
Hello. Happy birthday, Catherine. Did you like the present? You wanted that electronic piano, right?
It was Sarah's carefree voice. She and Bob had indeed bought the present together.
Sarah, hello. What's this about you being Sarah Mama?
Sarah looked taken aback, probably surprised to see me there. Sarah probably thought that my husband had told me about his relationship with her, and she assumed I'd be too angry to show up.
Oh, it's you, Mary. How've you been? What brings you here?
I wonder if, during this past week, my husband had promised Sarah he would tell me about their relationship. That's why she thought it would be just Bob and Catherine celebrating her birthday.
Well, I'm here because I'm Catherine's mother and Bob's wife. And who are you to act so brazenly?
I was fuming at Sarah's audacity, acting like nothing was wrong. If this were a comic, steam would be shooting from my ears, or better yet, my head might be depicted as exploding.
You're just some older woman. Bob never really got along with you, and he's always had a thing for me. He probably just married you on a whim, but he truly likes me. I'm younger, prettier, and way better than a disliked woman like you.
So this was the true nature of the ever-friendly Sarah. When you turn things inside out, she's just a wicked woman in disguise.
How dare you? So you're really a spiteful woman. How foolish of me to confide in you. Everything I shared with you was probably relayed verbatim, or worse, twisted, to my mother-in-law, wasn't it?
Sarah burst out laughing, her laughter dripping with condescension.
Calling me spiteful is a bit much, huh? But maybe you're right. Being cute has its perks.
What a devilish woman. Appearances can be deceiving. She always seemed so kind, but her current expression was twisted.
Anyways, where's the thank you for the gift? If your daughter's gonna be my daughter, you'd better teach her some manners.
I was both furious and dumbfounded. I couldn't comprehend why she believed I'd divorce Bob and give up Catherine.
What do you mean your daughter? Even if we did divorce, there's no way I'd give up Catherine.
The thought of giving up Catherine was inconceivable. No matter how poor we became, I'd always want to raise Catherine by my side.
No way? You should ask her yourself. Catherine told me she likes me better since I'm kind and let her do whatever she wants.
Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. Admittedly, I wasn't a mother who spoiled Catherine. I would tell her no when necessary and tried to teach her the value of restraint by not buying her every toy she wanted. So, did she prefer Sarah because she was allowed to do as she pleased and received any toy she wanted? I was at a loss for words. Into this silence, a sweet voice chimed in.
I like Mommy the best. Sarah, you just like Daddy, right? You never hug me and comfort me like Mommy does. You only hold hands with Daddy.
Catherine's words were so precious that I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. Children can see things more clearly than adults realize. I was overjoyed to know that Catherine recognized and valued the love I showed her.
My absolute favorite is Mommy. And Grandpa. Grandma shouldn't say mean things to Mommy. And I don't like Daddy or Sarah. Even when we go out, they just talk to each other and never play with me.
Kids are brutally honest. Catherine must have sensed Bob's infidelity. I was furious not only about the affair but also about how it made Catherine feel.
Bob, what the heck? You've been cheating on me with Sarah. It's infuriating enough that you cheated, but to do it in front of Catherine is even worse. I'll just come out and say it before you do. Let's get a divorce.
My vision blurred red with rage, but I tried to speak calmly. Bob glanced around, as if searching for an ally among our relatives.
Wait, Bob, what's going on? You and Sarah were having an affair? And Sarah, didn't you say Mary was a terrible mother? That she was always harsh on Catherine, almost bordering on abuse?
I looked at my mother-in-law in shock. Did she truly believe I was abusing Catherine? Sarah looked alarmed. Bob was frantically looking around for help.
Bob, I've long thought you should have married Sarah. We could have had many more grandchildren by now. And didn't Sarah say you weren't getting along with Mary? Living in that cluttered house without much housework done, I felt sorry for you.
I was so taken aback, I couldn't speak. The two of them had deceived my mother-in-law as well. It wasn't surprising that she was confused since they had involved her without my knowledge. Listening to Catherine, it doesn't seem like Mary is neglecting her duties as a mother. Mary, I apologize. I admit I was disappointed initially that Bob didn't marry Sarah and made some snide comments. But you always treated me kindly despite that. When I tried to build a better relationship with you and talk to Sarah, she told me you didn't like me and wished I'd just go away. Clearly, I was mistaken. I'm truly sorry. I was taken aback by this sudden apology from my mother-in-law, but if she was constantly fed lies, it made sense she'd hold some resentment towards me. It's almost laughable to think someone as stern as her was so easily deceived. To say I could completely forgive everything she'd done would be a stretch. But judging from her tone and expression, it seemed she genuinely regretted her actions. So, I reluctantly accepted her apology, understanding she too had been manipulated by Sarah.
Understood. I'll let it slide. But if anything like this happens again, I'll cut ties with you for good. That said, I'm definitely severing ties with Bob.
In this mess, my mother-in-law and I were kindred spirits, both deceived by Bob and Sarah.
Bob, what have you done? You're the worst. Don't ever step foot in this house again. The same goes for you, Sarah. Mary, I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive us?
Even my father-in-law apologized to me.
Sir, ma'am, please don't say such things. If I had many children with Bob, they'd be your grandchildren, right? Bob is your only child and heir to this family. If you disown him now, you might regret it later. Please, think it over.
Despite ruining everything, Sarah was audacious. Still speaking up confidently to my father-in-law. I couldn't fathom how she could be so bold.
Sarah, how do you know we only have one child? It seems you hardly listened when I confided in you. Bob has a fertility issue which made it challenging for us to conceive. We miraculously had Catherine, but for siblings, we would need fertility treatments.
While it was a private matter, I couldn't keep silent anymore. For so long, both in-laws had made many remarks about us having only one child. Bob probably blamed me for our inability to have more children, leading him to lie to Sarah, saying any woman other than me would easily have his child. This was the first time I saw Sarah's face pale.
That's a lie. Bob said it was your fault you couldn't have kids. Stop trying to save face. I plan to have lots of kids.
She was desperate. She must have thought she'd oust the wretched me, become the heroine, and settle into the family. With no allies and having been deceived by Bob about his fertility issue, she probably didn't anticipate this turn of events.
Sarah, you liar. How much of what you said was true? You seduced my Bob, such a wicked woman.
Sarah looked shocked when my mother-in-law confronted her. She must have been confident my mother-in-law was on her side. She probably never thought she'd be accused of leading him astray, even if no one told her outright that it was a good thing she split from such a woman.
You're terrible. You've always said you wished Bob and I were married. How can you say that now?
Everyone glared at her, causing my mother-in-law to hang her head. But maybe she didn't want to be the villain.
I never encouraged an illicit relationship. That's beyond decency. Bob, what were you thinking?
Spotting Bob trying to sneak away, she addressed him firmly. Watching the chaotic scene before me, I felt exasperated. Poor Catherine's birthday celebration was forgotten. I decided to head home with Catherine and celebrate just the two of us. That night, Bob returned home. He wanted to talk and began explaining his side of the story, but I wasn't in the mood to listen. I told him that from now on, we'd be communicating through a lawyer, and had him take his belongings and leave. I consulted my company's attorney to ensure I didn't need to deal with him directly. Of course, I ensured monthly child support. Additionally, I received a substantial amount as compensation from my in-laws. It seemed my mother-in-law had gotten quite an earful from my father-in-law, and she was walking on eggshells. I told them an apology would suffice, that they didn't need to go to such lengths, but they insisted it was for Catherine's sake. Unable to decline their generosity, I accepted. As for my ex-husband Bob and Sarah, they've been ostracized from their families and are apparently living together somewhere far away. Given they were an affair couple, I thought they'd split up soon. But it seems they're eventually gonna tie the knot. Either way, they're no longer my concern. Living a happy life daily with my daughter, Catherine, is all that matters to me. Word of my divorce spread at work, but everyone treats me just the same. I don't feel any awkwardness, and life is pretty normal. In the midst of all this, a client at work asked me out, and I agreed to date him. He's also divorced with no kids and has mentioned wanting to get married soon, expressing a desire to give Catherine a younger brother or sister. Catherine too seems fond of the idea of us getting married. Before I knew it, she turned 7. While our family was dysfunctional in the past, I'm optimistic about us finding true happiness this time around.